Greetings, everyone. This is Mike Riley, the voice of Ironman. And this is the Old School Tri Show with my Kiwi mates Cameron Harper and Brian Ashby. The show that talks about all things triathlon, old and new. We're powered by Ansco Foods, bringing you nutrition and good health from New Zealand's beef and lamb. Thanks for listening, everyone. Enjoy the show.
Welcome along to the Old School Tri Show, brought to you by our great friends at Ansco Foods. And today, Brian, one heck of a chat, so much fun.
So much fun. I guess the overriding theme with today's guest on the Old School Tri Show is Don't Die Wondering. Today, we talk with 2009 Ironman New Zealand's champion, Gina Crawford.
Ansco Foods is proud to be the new naming partner of Ironman New Zealand, ensuring every stroke, pedal and stride is powered by the best nature has to offer. Ansco Foods is on a mission to bring nutrition and good health from New Zealand's finest beef and lamb. Ansco Foods, putting the iron in Ironman with New Zealand's finest beef and lamb. Visit anscofoods.com/Ironman to find out more.
Fantastic, Gina, to have you on board with us today on the Old School Tri Show. And you know, it's funny looking back as we were sort of researching this and looking at your work and thinking in terms of Ironman New Zealand and the 40th. And of course, you were victorious in 2009, but there was just so much more to your career than Ironman New Zealand. In Ironman and broader terms, triathlon is Xterra and 70.3s. And I just wonder, you know, we'll pull the clock sort of right back. And how did you sort of arrive in the sport of Ironman? What was your background? How did it sort of evolve and get you into the sport of triathlon?
Yeah, well, you know, I was a swimmer when I was growing up, and then I left swimming when I was about 17 and went off to university, and I really didn't do anything at all sports-wise. And when I got to around 25, I think it was, I was teaching mathematics, and I was a bit low, depressed, you know, but mentally low, and I didn't really have anything outside of work to really aim for. My at the time, I think it was 2004 had just happened, and we'd just seen Hamish Carter and Bevan Doherty win, you know, silver, gold and silver, and it was really exciting. And at the time, triathlon was just really taking off here in New Zealand, and there was a lot of women's events, especially like really big ones where it's just really short triathlon, and that's how I started. I did that in the end of 2004 and just loved it. And there was a great load of triathletes here in Christchurch. We used to have the great QE2 pool, and Rowley was kind of taking it, and he saw me at the pool one day and got me to come in, and just surrounded myself with triathletes, and there were people coming from all over the world to train in our summer. So I kind of got inspired, and I did my first Ironman in 2007.
Who were just your contemporaries at the pool with Rowley at QE2? Because I know there was some pretty big names sort of doing triathlon stuff in Christchurch around that time.
Yeah, there was, you know, people would just pop in for, you know, a few months. I remember Bella Comerford, her and her partner, now husband Stephen Bayliss were there, and Brian Rhodes. So long ago. There was someone that was I can't remember. There was just so many of them, but just age group athletes as well. You know, the triathlon club was humming. There'd be a great, you know, you might remember back, Brian, on Saturday mornings down at Corsair Bay. Yeah, people were just training away, and honestly, I thought Ironman was crazy. Like, I remember that every year you'd see Cameron Brown come on doing the Ironman, and I thought that he was just a handful of people. Like, I thought I'd hear the distances and I'd be like, that's just crazy. I can't do that. But then one day I saw Ironman Western Australia on the TV, and I saw all sorts of people doing it, you know, finishing. And I was just amazed that these people had done that. And so it just gave me that bit of confidence that, hey, you can, if they can do it, you can give it a go. So I did.
So I remember back in the day when you know, you were, before you were married, Gina Ferguson, and suddenly you're seeing these results come up, and it's like Gina Ferguson, and we'd not met each other at that point. I remember ringing up a friend of mine who was actually your coach, Greg Frayne, and I said to Frayne, I was like, "Who the heck is this person?" He's like, "Oh, mate, he said she's the real deal. She will go there." But were you good right from the very start? Like, did you just hit the ground running from your competitive background, or did you have to struggle for a bit in some of those first ones? Or what was that like?
Well, I mean, the swimming came easy to me because I've been a swimmer for my whole life, and I'd always been a runner, not a runner. I just used to turn up to the school cross country and win it. So I just had this kind of natural running ability, but biking was really my downfall. I was not a good biker at all. I just had these skinny little legs, and it did take me a few years to really try and build up that muscle, but I just, when I go into something, I just go all in. I was just really excited about triathlon and, just loved it. And I always raced a lot. If you can, I was, just trying to do, that was what I enjoyed, was the racing. So I just used to try and do as much as I could. And every race just got me stronger, I think. But it did take many years with my bike. I mean, when I first started in 2007, I was way off the pace on the bike. And then I went off. I did that first race was Ironman New Zealand in 2007. And then my husband and I we'd never been to Europe. So we decided to camp. We bought a tent and we went over to Europe. And I really just got into as much, hills as I could, just bike. And by the end of that trip, I'd got really good at biking, and I came back and I on the way home I went to Ironman Wisconsin, and they had no idea. I think they wanted to interview everyone apart from me, because they didn't know who I was. So they called out all the list of people, and it was pretty much like everyone but not me, which got me a bit reared up, I think.
And you're like, hold my drink bottle, see you at the finish line.
Yeah. And that bike course just suited, courses that were hilly, just really undulating suited me a lot. I struggled on, the flat courses, and Ironman New Zealand was one of those courses where it was a really kind of, you needed to have that strength in your legs. And I did struggle with Ironman New Zealand. I was sort of I was, 52 kgs. So I struggled with those kind of power courses, but I was good at undulating, like strength courses, but not technical downhills.
Let's go back before sort of your first Ironmans in 2007, because I think then it was the Contact Energy Series or something around New Zealand. There were multiple races and you were really sort of dominating that. But we knew that you were doing Ironman New Zealand, and you were kind of defying the convention of the time by, as you mentioned before, you just loved racing. So what was it like for Greg Frayne putting together programs for you? And was he sort of scratching his head a little bit going, "Oh, Gina, is this the right way of going about it?"
I think in fairness, I think he's still trying to recover from that.
Yeah, I think it was, because I just wanted to do everything. And that Contact series was so great for me. Like, it's just so exciting, like going up. My husband worked for Air New Zealand, so we were able to get like cheaper travel with his staff travel discount. So I was able to get to these races, and I think it wasn't like I went into that Ironman. I definitely wasn't ready to do an Ironman, if that makes sense. Like I'd sort of done 120k bike ride, and I really struggled out there on the first one. I remember crying. But I got through it. Obviously, I think I got fifth. But, I wasn't exactly right up there or anything like that. But, I think it was pretty challenging to coach me because, I think people wanted a long-term plan on how to improve. And I just wanted to, go and do this. Yeah,
well, good on you. And, of course, Wisconsin, as you mentioned, what they were like before the race. What was I remember getting Ian Heppenstall. We phoned you and I recorded an interview for our sports news when you won Wisconsin, and it was tremendous to a maiden win in an Ironman. That was tremendous. What was the reaction from the people around Ironman Wisconsin on the back of that win, given the way they'd behaved pre-race?
Yeah, no, I mean, they were surprised. I remember on the bike, the camera crew asked me a few times, "Who are you?" but no, it was exciting. I remember, I think it was Paula Newby-Fraser was there, and she was getting quite excited to see. I remember her at around the transition area type thing, and she just, gave me a good, cheer on and stuff like that. But no, it was so exciting for me to win that race. It was just, really, really, I can't explain the emotion. The first race that you win, it's just really incredible experience. So, yeah.
What was it like coming down the finish line at Wisconsin? Can you remember that? What it was like coming down there, and it was your first win, and no one gave you even a fighter's chance on it, pre-race. I mean, suddenly they wanted to interview with the microphone after that, aren't they?
Yeah. No, it was really exciting. There's big crowds there. It's a student town, so there's a lot of, all around the course. There's a lot of university students, and there's one part of the course where you run into one of those stadiums, and you just run around it, and then you run back onto the course, and so it's just full of people and things. So yeah, the finish line was really exciting, and quite different to the races I've done in New Zealand, and even the ones I've done in Europe, really.
And you backed up later in the year with third Ironman of the year in Western Australia, and a second over there. I'm familiar with the course. What was it like for you over there? I mean, that was, I guess, a good taster for things to come in terms of the heat and crystal ball gazing to Kona, perhaps. What were conditions like, and so on? How did you find the fast flat course of Busselton?
Yeah, that first time, I think I raced twice there, and the first time it was not hot. It was pretty much like 20 degrees. So it was really quite good racing conditions. And I think it was a 3-lap bike course. I think I had a problem with my bike. I'm pretty sure that was the one where the bike handlebars were slipping, and I had to just hold them together for the whole ride. But again, the run was one of those fantastic courses. It's multi-lap, so there's a lot of spectators out there. Did I come second, I think?
Yes. Yeah.
No, it was did I go, was that the one I went under 9 hours?
In that one you did a 9 no, I haven't got a time on that one. I think later on you did an 8:59.24 the next year. When you won it 12 months later. Yeah.
I must have done it 3 times then.
Okay.
I think I did it 3 times. Yeah. So it's hard. Like, it's hard to decipher different races. Because I've done 40.
Yeah.
and they sort of just merge into one. I've got like little feelings from different, but I can't sometimes remember which one is which. But yeah.
Yeah. The next year was sort of the start of a remarkable chapter in iron distance racing for you in Wanaka, and effectively you became the queen of Wanaka, winning down there the iron distance race down there ahead of Ironman New Zealand 6 times. And I mean, that is a tough course with nasty, big, heavy chip and rolling, and sometimes the wind's thundering down. Why was that course so successful for you, do you think?
That was that bike course really suited me. As I said, I had that. I was light. I had this good power to weight ratio, and so it didn't require, like, aerodynamics weren't so important either. I do have these big swimmer's shoulders, so I always felt that kind of like was a hindrance to me sometimes on the bike if it was a really needed to be aerodynamic. So it was a course where it's just really challenging up and down all day, and I think courses used to suit me. I never thought of myself as a very good athlete, but I just had to sort of wait. If the course was challenging enough, I had to wait to other people to suffer too much, and then I could come through. Wanaka was always a course that suited me just because of the nature of how tough it was. Sometimes it was so windy that you felt like you're getting blown off the bike, but it didn't require technical skills on the bike really, apart from a few patches where there were those crosswinds.
Gina, when it comes to recovery from, because you did race a lot, like you're saying, 40 iron distance races is impressive, and then you put everything else in there, and what was it like for you to recover? Because it was quite common for you to do to race multiple times in a month, or to race weekend after weekend, or have a couple of weeks gap. So what was the story with you for recovery, then get ready for the next one? You obviously recover quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I was nasty. Each time I did an Ironman, it was nasty. I got bad blisters. So on my toenails would just come up, So it did take healing. After a week, it was still pretty sore, but 2 weeks later, I was pretty much okay. But yeah, I always felt it was the mind. If the mind wanted to do something, the body would follow. It was if the mind was wanting to do something, then you could pretty much go to. And I always say with Ironman, it's such a mental sport that you really have to want to be there. You really have to want to be on the finish. And there were a few times where I probably pushed it too much, and I did have a couple of DNFs for that reason. I raced a lot, and then sometimes I just knew beforehand that my mind wasn't wanting to do such a huge task, but I did it anyway, and that didn't pay off for me. But yeah, I just wanted to survive in the sport, I think, for as long as I could. So that meant racing a lot, trying to gain enough money to keep going for the next one, and just getting as much, living life and just seeing the world like I'd never been able to do before. And I'm so glad that I did it, because I haven't been able to travel in recent years. So yeah, got all those memories still in there.
Yeah, just going back to the Wanaka scenario, a lot of internationals would come effectively looking for sort of a double dip of earnings, Wanaka and then Ironman New Zealand. So you always had really good competition down there in Wanaka as well. But just going back to what you've just said about recovery and those sort of things, was it the hardest time of the year, the weekend after Ironman New Zealand? They were quite close, those two iron distance races. Was that the time of the year when you were the most cooked?
Yeah, probably. I mean, the good thing about Wanaka was it was an off-road run, and I always felt that recovery was faster because of that. Like I didn't have such sure, joints and muscles and things from the running. But yeah, Ironman New Zealand took its toll mentally, because I found it a really mentally tough bike course. There wasn't a lot to look at, and I loved the run and the swim, but the bike course used to really nail me a bit. And so I'd take a decent break after March, and then regroup and go to Europe later on usually.
Just something you were saying before, Gina, and I find it really, really interesting in that, a lot of us, when we're younger, you put your backpack on and you go to Europe, or you go to Australia, or you go to wherever it is, and you go over there and you get a job and whatever. It's quite cool, the attitude that you were talking about before, and I see it a lot with people when they're younger and racing triathlon or something like that. And, you basically did your OE, but you did it via Ironman racing and that kind of thing. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a battle, because there were a lot of people just kept telling me, look, Gina, you just need to do 2 Ironmans a year and just do them well, and forget all this other stuff. Just do Ironman New Zealand and Kona and just do that. But I would never have been able to make a living in the sport doing that as a woman, a New Zealand woman. I had to go out and race, and I enjoyed it as well. And so I'm really glad I just stuck to my guns and did what was right for me and my family. And yeah.
Second time at Ironman New Zealand, I think you were about 36 minutes quicker in 2008, but you're still sort of in 5th place. So you can see the progression, and you're still a bit of an Ironman rookie in pro terms, I suppose, even though you've had a win in Wisconsin. That year marked your first trip to Kona. Tell us about your Kona experiences over the years. I think you debuted there with an 8th place and a 9:36, which is wow. In Kona, that's something. Yeah.
Yeah. The first time in Kona was good, because you didn't know what it was going to be like, which I found was beneficial, because after that you always knew how tough it was going to be, and you're kind of a bit traumatized because I found it so tough on the bike. I really did. I felt like I was in an oven, like a fan oven, and just the heat was coming up everywhere. But the first time was fine, because you didn't know what it was going to be like. Once I was off the bike, I was generally okay, but and I could run fairly well. I found the aid stations really great, because I could just run with ice the whole time. But the bike, I really felt it was the worst experience that you could imagine. So yeah, it was. Yeah, I felt after that first one, I felt a bit traumatized every time I came to Kona because I knew how painful it was going to be. But yeah, the first one was, really exciting. Just being around all these athletes, you kind of get a bit overwhelmed because you see everyone up and down lead drive just sprinting, and you're like, gosh, they look fast and they're fit, and because in New Zealand you just wave at you're biking along and you see someone, you wave, and and I was waving to people and no one was waving back, and I was like, gosh, people aren't friendly here. But it was I learned obviously a lot about that course the first time, and I knew that I needed to break the bike course down in my head, and so I pretty much knew the mile markers, like everything next to it, so I could break that race down coming back, because that last, once you get back up into the Queen K and you've got about 60 Ks, I just found that so mentally tough.
Yeah.
For you, Gina, as you're talking about that, and I find it interesting. I was going to ask you, actually, you kind of answered it anyway, about being intimidated leading up to a race. Did you ever find that, leading up to a race, looking who you're up against? We'll talk about it a bit later. I mean, you were up against Jo Law, man, and she was at the peak of her powers for so long. And you look at the quality of fields in Kona, in WA, New Zealand, everywhere. They were just right out the gate. So did you ever get intimidated by that, or did you have the mental skills, you're talking about that a lot, to be able to get your head around that and just turn up, I'm fine, I'm good to go?
Yeah, I mean, I just tried to focus on myself and not worry. Obviously I knew who would be racing, and I'd sometimes be intimidated by some people, but there was nothing I could do. I knew that there was nothing I could do about them, and all I could do was focus on myself, trying to be the best that I could on the day, and then sticking to my own plan as much as I could.
That 2008 year, with your 8th in Kona, Ironman Western Australia is sort of the last or second to last Ironman race of the year, and you went back and you won it. And as we mentioned before, you went sub 9 hours there. What were conditions like there second time around?
I can't remember. I just can't remember between the races, but I do remember being very excited on the finish line, because I don't really, race with a watch. So I don't have a watch. I just run. And when I got to the end, I saw that I was going to break that 8:50 at the 9 hour mark. So I just remember being extremely excited when I finished.
Yeah.
But as for the race, I just can't remember it.
Yeah.
Hey, doesn't matter. Look at the time you got. Look at the time, man. So you never raced right through your career. Did you just ditch the watch at some point, or did you just never bothered with one? You just ran.
No, I never had a watch until I think maybe the last few. Maybe I started wearing a watch, but just for time, just so I knew when to eat, drink and stuff like that. But no, I never had a watch with any data, heart rate.
You're worried about running pace and all this other palaver. I mean, it's interesting, as we're talking to people here on the Old School Tri Show, and you go back to the olden days, and it's interesting talking to those guys, because there was no such thing as a sports watch. They just went out there and raced, right? And it's good to see somebody like yourself that were like, I know myself, I know what I'm capable of. I know how far to push myself most of the time. But you see so many athletes that just get caught up in the numbers and the data, and they just the race goes up the road from them, and they've probably got it in them to do it, but they pull themselves back because of what their watch tells them.
Yeah, and there's certain courses as well. Like, I mean, you talk about Challenge Wanaka and my success there. I never, if I'd had a power meter telling me that I was going too hard up a hill, I wouldn't have won that. Right? I went really hard up the hills, and I don't. My power would have probably been spiking above what it should be, but I just did it anyway because I just like to race like that. So yeah, I did experiment with a watch with with pace and things right at the end of my career. And I hate in training. I started trying to beat myself from last week. And that's really not, if it's a hard run, then sure, that's fine. But I started even with the long run. I actually realized how slow I was on a long run, and it really freaked me out. I was like, how am I going to, I'm wanting to do these 3-hour marathons and I'm running so slow. But yeah, that's a key. It's doing the hard stuff hard, doing the easy stuff easy. And once that watch came along, I was trying to go too hard on the sessions that I wasn't supposed to be. So I quickly just knew that for me it wasn't going to work. But yeah, it works for other people. For me it wasn't. It took away the joy of training. I enjoyed training, and then as soon as I had, and people were always trying to get me on a power meter, and I just thought, no, I'm going to hate training if I'm going to have this telling me that I'm not going fast enough all the time when I'm already going as fast as I can on those intervals. So yeah.
With that now, as time's moved on, Gina, the coach, with the athletes that you work with, how data driven are they, or is it sort of, how do you sort of work with those guys, heart rate monitors, power meters, and the like? Do you encourage them to, or is it, not one size fits all? How do you sort of operate as a coach?
Yeah, it's not one size fits all. I think it's really beneficial for some parts of training, especially, some age group athletes that really struggle with holding themselves back at the beginning of the bike ride, that kind of thing. And it's definitely good to get a gauge of where you want to, something to aim for, and to make sure that you're not going too hard when you're supposed to be going easy. So it's really beneficial in a number of ways, but as long as I try to make sure that people don't get too wound up about all this data. I mean, I feel it's quite normal, especially when you're in the big weeks, that you are going to be off with your number. Say if you're doing a hard bike session on a Wednesday, you're probably still going to have a fair bit of fatigue, and so not to get wound up if you're not hitting what you were 3 weeks ago, and just to know that it will come back once you freshen up, that kind of thing. But yeah, I do say to people, look, I'm not a highly scientific driven numbers coach, and if you're looking for that, then go to someone else. But I want people to develop a feel, so that on race day they know their body, and they can not just be looking at a device and having that tell you that you know your own body as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah. Let's look, you 40 iron distance races, and like a lot of the people we talk to on the Old School Tri Show, struggle to remember the individual ones, but surely you remember Ironman New Zealand's first weekend in March 2009, your victory at Ironman New Zealand. What can you tell us about that day, and what do you remember?
Yeah. Again, I mean, I think I raced Ironman New Zealand 10 times. So again, like there's bits and pieces of I don't know which race is which, and I can't remember which conditions they were. I think it might have been the race where I biked reasonably well, and I was able to stick around Joe Lawn for once. I think, was that the one?
Yeah.
5:12, I think, on the bike. Yeah.
Like often I struggled mentally with that course, and I would just drop off. But I think I managed to actually bike really well, and I ran well. And once I got onto the run, I was in my I'm in my happy place once I'm off the bike. So yeah, I remember being extremely excited again. Because I'd obviously always wanted to win this race in your home country, and it was the only time it happened. So I'm glad I soaked that up and enjoyed that finish.
The thing with that too, Gina, is, Jo was on, she'd gone 6 in a row, and she came back and won it again in 2010. It might have been 5. Anyway, she was on the streak, and then to turn up, and she was at the peak of her powers. My memory of that race is that you guys here, I remember you were pretty close to each other in the water. You had a very good bike that day. Looking at the results, there was only a couple of 3 minutes difference. And then, you just unleashed this run, and you in the end, I think you won it by 5 or 6 minutes. It was a heck of a victory.
Yeah, no, I mean, sometimes it comes together. I mean, that's the thing with Ironman, and that's why it becomes a bit addictive, because, there's always something you can do better. And that there's not often you get a race where you actually get to the end and you think, hey, that I'm happy with everything I did that day. So I think that was one of the days where it just came together, like for me. And yeah, you just got to really enjoy those days when they happen. So yeah, I just had one of those days, and maybe, Jo didn't have her best day out there, but yeah, you just take those when you, as I said, when you have a great day like that, just enjoy it. And I think after that, I think I got second quite a few times. And it was always, that was just the way it was. But you still enjoy, there was still days when you get second or third and you just have a really good run. You're really proud of what you did out there, but it's just not good enough for first. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because, we've talked about Jo being at the peak of her powers, but your career also traversed the arrival of Meredith Kessler in New Zealand as well, who went on to dominate with 5 wins. And you were always right there on the podium and always a contender and always putting the hurt on those guys. So what was it like racing against those guys? Was there, out on the course, was there ever sort of much, guys talk about smack talk? Well, what was it like, when you're out there on the course with other top pros?
Yeah, no, I mean, there was no smack talk or anything like that. Meredith was always, such a nice person that you just had to focus on you, because it was almost in a way that she's too nice, so nice you don't want to beat her. Maybe that was her game plan, but we just had to stick with our own game plans, really, and that's all you can do. I mean, she's a great, amazing swimmer, she's a great biker, and she's a great runner as well, but sometimes I think that I could chase her down on that run, and I obviously never did, but I gave it my best shot every year, and it was frustrating in a way that she was so good at that course, and I could beat her in Kona, but I just couldn't beat her in Taupo, but I gave it everything I could, but it definitely made me a better athlete, that's for sure, I think.
I remember one of the Meredith's victory speeches at the prize giving, and the thing is that Meredith always gets dressed up, like she's dressed up. She's got a lovely dress, and she's all dressed up for the prize giving. And she was trying to get up on the stage, and she's sort of a little bit slow. And I said to her, I was sort of standing there by the side of the microphone. I said, "You okay?" And she goes, "I've never been hurt like Gina hurt me yesterday." And then she got up there and she gives everyone a kiss and a hug. But that was just a little comment she made on the way past to me. She said, "I've never been hurt like Gina hurt me yesterday."
No, she never showed it. She looked, she's always looking so strong out there on the run. So, yeah.
And here she is and here she is. She's still racing, man. She's still doing it.
I know. It's crazy to have that drive still, for so long.
Yeah. You came back in 2010 as defending champion. You finished second, but the next year we didn't see you because you had a pretty significant change in your life at that point.
Yeah, I had my first son. So he was born in July 2011. So, yeah, I think that was a good one to sit out, because I think that might have been the year where it was really raining and cold. Is that correct?
Yeah, 11, then we had 12 was an issue, and 13 was an issue.
Yeah.
12
was the half. It turned into a half.
Yeah. And 13 was a horrible wet year. But I'm sure 11 was not a great year either.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a bad year, and so I was quite happy I wasn't on, with that rain and cold.
Did you always intend to come back after, becoming a mum? Because life gets a whole lot more complicated as a parent, particularly when you're racing at the sharp end where you were.
Yeah, no, I didn't have any. I didn't know, to be honest. And when my son was born, I was just focused. I didn't do any training for until he was about 3 months, I think. And then I just found that I did have that drive to compete again. And I had a really supportive husband that, obviously I had to change my training a lot. Pre-baby, I think I was doing sort of 30, 35 hours a week. And after that, I was doing more like 15 to 20 hours a week. And, breastfed for 15 months, something like that. So yeah, it was a huge training difference. But it was just made it, every time I trained, I just really enjoyed that time, just that little bit of time to be by myself. And, when I was training for these long things when he was young, it was a matter of, biking for an hour or two, coming back, having a feed going off again. So it was just breaking it down and just getting it done. But I was lucky that my husband, he was happy he wanted me to get out there and, because I was quite young still. I was 30, I think, 30, 31. So yeah, it was kind of like the halfway point in my career. It was good to get a break.
Yeah. And you sort of, you mentioned your husband and so on. You're doing things that other couples are doing at that time, with houses and renovating or building, and you had quite a sort of lifestyle going on, starting a family and so on. So your work is a whole lot different from the average sort of punter out there and so on. So how hard was that? Because you moved around a wee bit at that time too, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. We moved a lot, and we we traveled a lot to these races, but we kind of thought, well, hey, we don't want to work really, jobs where you don't do this and then aim to go out when you're 65 and hope that you're still alive to enjoy yourself a bit. So I mean, I was really lucky that I had that talent to be able to have a go at being a professional athlete. So it's like, I don't want to waste that talent, and it's our opportunity to see the world. And children was, my son was young, so it's not like he needed to be in school or anything like that. So let's go for it while we can, kind of thing.
Can I chuck this on a bit of a, sorry, Brian, can I just chuck this on a bit of a tangent for just a quick couple of questions? A lot of people wouldn't realise that you've got a separate whole other career, Gina, as a musician as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I go through that.
Yeah. So, I played the violin right from the age of 6. One of my degrees at university, I was in performance violin. So I did that, and I just was able, in the orchestra, the Christchurch Symphony Orchestra, I was able to come and do particular concerts. You're a contractor, so I could do the ones where I was home in New Zealand, and I still do it now. Last night I was at rehearsal. We've got a concert on Saturday, so yeah, I like to try and keep something completely different. It was nice in a way to not just be focused on just triathlon and training. It just have something completely different to get a good balance in your life and not be taken over by sport.
Are you one of these people that's good at everything?
No, I'm definitely.
I'm the opposite to you.
No, I just remember my parents always grilling, saying if you've got a talent, you don't waste it. And it just grilled into me, because I think when I was a kid, I kind of did complain a bit sometimes about having to do, swimming and, I just wanted to chill out sometimes. But, my parents were like, look, if you've got a talent, you go, you don't waste it. It's a sin to waste it. So I think I pretty much just, in my adulthood, just kept doing these things that I was born good at.
You've also always struck me, Gina, as being an incredibly cool person, but also having a very, very good work ethic. You've got a very strong work ethic. Did that come from your family and growing up?
Yeah. I've always been a hard worker and organised, that kind of thing. So I think my athletes appreciate that about me, that I get back to them quickly and that kind of thing. But yeah, my parents did grow in, that you work hard, you don't muck around, So yeah, they definitely grilled that into me as a youngster, that you work, you put in the time, and you get so far with talent alone, but it's all that hard work on top of that. You're not going to succeed if you're just talented but you don't put the work in.
Is the violin, in some ways, is that almost meditative for you? Like a real chill thing, because you've got to put your mind in a completely different place.
Yeah, it used to be. I've got to say that in recent years, it's I had an issue one concert where I was pregnant, and I unfortunately I lost the baby, and I was in a concert and I had some issues with nearly fainting, and after that, even now, that was like 8 years ago, and so now I have this performance anxiety. I force myself to do it, but I really am anxious on the stage every time now. So yeah, it used to be something I really, really enjoyed. That was different, and now it's something I force myself to do with the hope that I'll conquer that anxiety one day. But yeah, practicing by yourself, though, of course, it's
Yeah.
something good for the brain, and does relax you.
I don't want to pique your anxiety, Gina, but is this do you come okay once the concert starts, or is it right the way through the performance?
No, it's all I feel sick and I think I'm going to faint. And then one time someone did faint, and so that made it worse because I actually saw someone faint in the orchestra and they got dragged off the stage. So that just made it even worse. Because before that I was just kept telling myself I'm being stupid. And then after that I was like, actually this could legitimately happen. So yeah, I just feel on and off anxious and, heart rate racing, that kind of thing. But I'm okay. I get through it. And when I'm finished, happy as like doing a race. You're happy as once you're done. It's just a relief. But yeah, I wish I could get back to the place I was where I could really enjoy it.
Did you, that performance anxiety, what was it like for you on the start line of a race? Did you ever sort of have that, you're trying to slow the heart rate a wee bit and be a bit chilled, or did you, get the adrenaline start pumping? Did you ever have those scenarios that, some people have the paddle in the water,
Yes, definitely. I got very nervous, and I don't think I really slept at all the night before. I just was awake, sort of just lying there awake, wishing. I used to wish that we just start at midnight, because then I would have, I was just wasting away, just lying there. But it was just how it was. But I was very nervous. I didn't like people. I couldn't talk to people in the if people tried to talk to me, I was just, I was just too anxious to talk to anyone or anything. But once we got into the water, and we were waiting to start, I started to feel much better. I was just like, oh, thank God, we're just going to start finally. And then once you're going, you're fine, and you're just in your zone, and there's no problems once you started. It's just that pre-race anxiety. Yeah.
It must be quite cool now that, in the coaching phase of your life and talking to your athletes about what to expect on race day when they're like, oh my goodness, I'm so anxious, I can't sleep. You're like, you know what? I couldn't either. And you can actually have a conversation with them about it. That must be quite cool.
Yeah. And I've definitely got lots of experiences to bank on and help them through, to know what, kind of thoughts or feelings you might have and how to help deal with that. So, yeah, luckily, most of them are not as anxious as I was, I don't think. But, it's definitely helpful to have all those experiences.
Coming back after having your son, gosh, you got another good 5 years of racing as a pro, and lots of podiums at Ironman New Zealand. As we mentioned before, you were always going to make life miserable for either Meredith or Joe and beat them up. But you did a lot of travelling, and you had some. Just tell us about some of the other races that you did around the world. I know in 2014 you had a probably the biggest pay packet of your career in Indonesia, and a lot of time in Europe and so on. So just talk us through some of the other events that you did around the world and Europe in particular.
Yeah. I definitely I liked going to Europe. I always felt at home in Germany for some reason, and we just we had a couple of spots that we really liked and we'd go to, and you could just quickly, quite easily drive to different races around there. So yeah, probably my favorite Ironman that I did was on Ironman France. I just loved the bike course. It was just so cool. And I wasn't a good descender. And it was just, so I was kind of leading until that descent. But it was just amazing to see the skills of those European athletes. And of course, the run course was fantastic too, flat and lots of spectators. I did Roth a few times. Obviously loved that race. I'm in Frankfurt. enjoyed that. The run course was really great there because there were these bridges that your support, my husband could just run across. So you could, I think it was like 4 laps, but you could see he could run between the bridges. So you saw your support many, many times. There were lots of 70.3s I liked. That I went to Austria many times. I went to Switzerland. I just tried to go to as many different places as I could.
Bintan, Indonesia. I think both you and Cameron Brown in 2014, you're virtually there on the equator, and a big win for you there, iron distance race.
Yeah, and that was just an amazing race as well. I mean, the swim was beautiful. The bike course was, a full loop, it was really nice bike course. The road surface was good. I enjoyed the hills, and then the run course was kind of around this resort area. It was really beautiful as well. There were monkeys, and of course there was a great prize packet up, which was kind of like a game changer for me. People had said, "Oh, it's too close to Kona, don't do it." But I mean, you got to survive in this sport, and I'm glad that I if I had put everything into Kona, I don't think I would have achieved any more than I did. I'm glad I did these opportunities.
Yeah. What was your best result in Kona? Do you recall?
Yeah, I got top 10 4 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think I got a 7th. So that was the best, 2 8ths and a 9th.
Yeah.
So I think it was like 8th and then a 7th and a 9th and then an 8th, I think.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking, now with the World Championships being rotated between Kona and Nice, and I think the women are in Nice this year. Given what you just said, I think you're going to have to sort of make a comeback and qualify because you love that course.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could cover the distance. I don't have the want to do it, but I love it how they've separated it. I would have loved that. Like different athletes with different skills can win, and I said before that I found it a bit traumatizing going back a year. It didn't feel like very long between the races, and I was still a bit traumatized from the last time. I think it would have been really good to have 2 years between that, and this year it will be interesting to see maybe a completely different athlete win, someone that's got those really good skills, descending especially, climbing. I think it's great that they're doing that.
Yeah,
I thought that the first women's only Kona that we had last year, it was awesome. It was so cool to watch and have that whole focus. And Lucy Charles Barclay had an absolute stonking race. It was just so good to see, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And even when they went to having it on separate days, it was good. You got to see the woman as just the woman and not kind of just mixed in, and a couple of times they might focus on the women. But I think it's good. And now with totally different time of year and everything, people can really focus on those athletes, and they deserve just as much coverage and support as the males. So it's cool.
Yeah. Tell me, you came back and raced, and I remember talking to you. You turned up in the age group race at Ironman. How many years ago would that be? 3, 4 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, the story with that was that I was planning to do the 70.3, and because my second child had just been born in mid 2017, and so this must have been 2018, and I was planning to do the half, and I didn't get my entry in on time, silly me, and I had emailed them and I was like, oh please can I do the half? No. So I ended up having to do the full, and I really probably didn't want to do that distance, but it was good to have it because I just gone straight into pro. In New Zealand, you don't need to have a pro license. You just need an email, to say that you are at that standard. So it was my first time racing as an age group, and it was good to, experience something different. And, I just wanted to, have my last, because I had a DNF with that last Port Macquarie. I had raced, maybe it was 2016, and I didn't want that to be my last race. So I just wanted to go out and finish it. Get it done.
Because I remember you saying afterwards that, I don't know what your time was, Gina, doesn't matter, but I remember you saying that, there was it might have been a social media post that you wrote, and I don't know if you remember this, but it's always stuck with me that you said, through, now this is just me, as a working mum, trying to balance life and family and work and everything else, this is my time, this is what I could do. But you know what? Through hard work and determination, I could actually go quicker than this. And it shows what hard work and determination. I'm summarizing, probably getting it slightly wrong, but it was something that stuck with me of you saying, like, this is just me as a walking around Gina Crawford, this is what I can do. But you know what? With a whole lot of hard work and determination back in the day, I could knock 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever it is off this time and win this thing, which I found really, really intriguing and interesting.
Yeah, I think I was probably just trying to show that, I'm not like some kind of extraordinary person that is just built faster than other people. It's the mental part of the game is, the work, because obviously I didn't do as much training for that race as I would have, when I was a pro, and also the competitive spirit had just left me. I was, I just didn't care about my time. I just wanted to get through it. But it just shows you that any ordinary person, if you've got this real drive and determination, you can, make big improvements, for sure. So yeah, no, it was good to just get a finish and finish it off with a nice way to finish, not with my last Ironman being a bad experience.
When we were preparing for this chat, you go to multiple websites and dig out results from all over the shop and so on. And one thing I didn't pick up on, I'd sort of forgotten in the dark recesses of my mind, you got a couple of national Xterra titles as well. So you did a bit of the off-road stuff. What point in your career was that? And you just sort of like getting out on the mountain bike to mix it up a wee bit?
Yeah, I mean, I love the mountain bike. Now I train, but I only train on the mountain bike. I don't go road biking or anything like that. But that doesn't mean that I'm good at mountain biking. I'm not a skillful person. I can go on the flat absolutely great. Downhill is not my thing. So the first time I won it was, really scary because I had this old bike and it didn't have brake. It was just scary. And I found, once I got through some of those downhill sections and then we were onto four-wheel drive tracks, it was great because I could just power my way back into it. And then the run, I ran fairly well. But yeah, no, it was just more something for fun that I did. But that course and road, I probably mountain bikers don't find it hard at all. But for me, I found it really hard with the downhill sections. But yeah, if the only thing that would probably get me back into racing would be if there was a Xterra that was non-technical. I know they've got the cross triathlon in Wanaka, but it's still downhill. I just want a race with no technical ability is needed, just a nice flat mountain bike, and then a swim and a run as well.
Yeah, I'm nowhere near your level, Gina, but you're my kind of mountain biker.
Yeah, well, I know where you're living. You're adjacent to some very useful mountain bike track. Aside from mountain bike, now in retirement, do you swim run as well? Just for the fun of it, you still sort of keep it going. Yeah.
Yeah. So I run. I do everything slowly. I run with my dog most days. I mountain bike just in that flat forest near my house. And then I swim occasionally when my son is a really good swimmer. So when he's training, if it's summer, when I can go into an outdoor pool, that's, I love outdoor swimming. I'm not a big fan of being inside in the swimming pool, so I won't do that unless it's been days of terrible weather. But yeah, I still keep myself fit, still basically train like a triathlete, but don't race.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask, you're saying one of your sons is a good swimmer. Are they both? Have they got the work ethic and the competitive spirit that mum and I'm assuming dad's got too? Yeah,
the oldest one is 12 and a half, and he's a lot more talented than I ever was. Like, he's really good at swimming, especially the longer, the 1,500 meters. And he's a really good runner. He doesn't do. I won't let him do any run training. he's 12 and a half, and he'll be growing, big growth spurts with boys. So he does basketball, he does soccer. I let him do that kind of running. But he does try, he comes and does the tri events. We've got some great events that kids can take part in. So he's really keen for that. And in the future, who knows, it's up to the individual if they want to push and do something like that. But he's definitely got the talent for it. And he's a hardworking boy in terms of schoolwork and all that type of stuff. And the younger one is only 6, but he's absolute ball energy. He's a great runner. He's into all sorts of sports, and he's a very kind of extroverted, out there, outgoing type of person. So yeah, we'll see.
You're proud of what you achieved, Gina. It's a pretty cool career, and the lifestyle that you guys led, but the results that you achieved along the way. Do you look back with fondness at your professional career? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, sometimes I think that maybe I'm a mad person that just dreamed it all, and none of it actually happened. Because but yeah, I think results aside, I think the thing I'm most proud about is, when I went off and had a baby and came back into the sport, no one had really done that really before. And so it was hard because, I had to start from scratch. People didn't believe that I'd come back and be successful. And after that, there were many women that went off and had a baby. And I never talked to anyone about it, but I hoped that what I did coming back and being successful and showing that, hey, you can go and have a baby and you're not written off. It helped women in the future that went behind me so they didn't lose sponsors and have to restart. And there was even races where they didn't see me as a professional anymore. And I said to them, look, my last Ironman victory was only September 2010. There's men here that had injuries, like Achilles, long-term injuries that had, success, prior to that. And so, yeah, I hope now that people don't just write women off as, I know they wouldn't, because it's, I think that was the thing I most, if I look back, I'm just glad that I did, to show people that you can have a baby, come back. I was more successful when I came back, and then there were a lot of women that went off and had babies and were really successful as well. So
yeah, absolute leader, Gina, in the sport to that end, and it I'm sure that's helped a great many. We're really grateful for your time on the Old School Tri Show. You haven't been lost to the sport of Ironman because you're still coaching, and to that end, you've got a website for your coaching business. Would you like to give you the last word, share your website with us?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what my website is.
Shall I help? Gina Crawford Coaching. Is it?
Oh, okay, yeah. And I only take a specific number of athletes that I can only manage it, so I can do a good job. So, yeah, I'm lucky. I've got a lot of people racing this coming weekend at Ironman New Zealand, and and then the new season starts really.
40 years of Ironman New Zealand. You were the 2009 women's champion, and you've contributed so much more over so many years with the sport. We're so grateful for you joining us today on the Old School Tri Show. Gina Crawford.
Thank you. It was good to have a chat.